Kevin O'Connor never auditioned for television. He never sent a reel, never hired an agent, never walked into a casting call. What got him the job was a house falling apart at its seams and wallpaper that refused to budge no matter how hard he scraped. One desperate email sent in 2003 changed everything, not just for him, but for the oldest home improvement franchise in American television history. He went from senior vice president at Bank of America to the most trusted face in home renovation, built a fortune estimated at nearly $8 million, earned Emmy nominations, launched multiple shows, co-founded a tool rental company, and anchored one of the most respected brands in public broadcasting for over 2 decades. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. He stopped mentioning the man who started it all. He went public calling most DIY shows completely worthless. Cast members retired one by one. Rumors about his future started spreading, and fans who had trusted him for years began asking questions he hadn't publicly answered yet. This is the full story of Kevin O'Connor, and it runs considerably deeper than the show ever revealed. Maplewood, New Jersey, somewhere around 1968, and the house Kevin grew up in never stopped being a construction zone. His father worked as a civil engineer, and with 4 brothers and 2 sisters sharing the same roof, the family home constantly doubled as a job site. While other kids spent afternoons on bikes or playing in backyards, Kevin was learning to measure lumber, hang drywall, and interpret blueprints before he'd finished primary school. That environment didn't simply give him a set of practical skills. It built an instinct for how structures worked at a level most people never develop naturally. And that instinct would eventually set him apart from every host who came before him in ways producers couldn't fully explain but immediately recognized. At 19, during military training, Kevin began blacking out without warning. Doctors ran tests and found a heart murmur serious enough to raise genuine questions about whether he could continue service at all. What followed was stranger than the diagnosis itself, because every medical record from that period disappeared completely, and no explanation ever surfaced for why. That missing paper trail created headaches years later, whenever Kevin needed to trace his own health history. Military service stopped being a viable path, and whatever direction he had charted for himself needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. He graduated from St. Benedict's Preparatory School in Newark in 1986, earned a history degree from the College of the Holy Cross in 1990, and later returned for an MBA from Boston University in 1999. History looks like an unusual major for someone who'd eventually spend decades on construction sites explaining roof systems and foundation repairs. But it trained him to research deeply, connect ideas across long timelines, and make complex things understandable to people without expert backgrounds. The MBA opened doors into corporate finance, and once inside, he moved quickly. Fleet Bank brought him in to work their sports finance division, where he helped structure multi-million-dollar loans for stadiums and large-scale sports facilities. From there, Bank of America came calling, and he climbed to senior vice president in commercial real estate, managing portfolios worth millions and earning a salary that included bonuses, stock options, and everything else attached to a high-flying corporate career deep into 6 figures. Then he walked away from all of it, which shocked everyone around him. In 2003, Kevin and his wife Kathleen bought a Queen Anne Victorian house in Beverly, Massachusetts, built in 1894, and the dream curdled almost immediately after move-in. The house needed a new kitchen, updated bathrooms, bedroom work throughout, and beneath all of that sat the wallpaper problem. Decades of layers had been painted over and over again across every room, turning each wall into a time capsule of poor design decisions stacked on top of each other. The Victorian rounded corners that defined the architecture made the physical work even harder, and the paper simply would not release from the plaster, no matter what they tried. Kevin described it later as scraping like crazy with nothing to show for the effort. Kathleen handled the plastering while Kevin demolished walls and tore out ceilings to open the cramped kitchen. When they ran out of solutions, they sent an email to the crew of This Old House, the show both of them had grown up watching, asking whether some professional technique existed that they were missing entirely. They expected nothing beyond a tip or two in response. What they didn't know was that producers were actively developing a spin-off called Ask This Old House at exactly that moment, and were quietly looking for someone to front it. The crew came to Beverly, filmed a segment that aired as Season 1, Episode 22 on March 6, 2003, and watched Kevin very carefully the entire time. He never stopped asking questions, not during setup, not at lunch, not between takes. Tom Silva, the show's master carpenter, barely got a moment to eat. But what producers noticed wasn't just curiosity. Kevin asked exactly the kinds of questions that viewers at home were asking, without performing for the camera or trying to appear knowledgeable. He was genuinely there to learn, and it read as completely authentic on screen. After the shoot wrapped, Kevin ran out to get a photo with the crew, told them he'd probably never see them again, and meant every word of it. 3 weeks later, the phone rang at his desk at Bank of America. He assumed a loan inquiry. The producers of This Old House were on the line, offering him the hosting chair, not just for the spin-off, but for the original series as well. He asked his boss to keep his position open because he was certain he'd be back within a year. That's how little he believed it was real. The show had survived 2 significant transitions before Kevin arrived. Bob Vila launched it in 1979, turned it into a household name, and across 10 years and 235 episodes, earned somewhere between $47,000 and $188,000 total, while simultaneously pulling in $500,000 annually from outside endorsements. When those deals conflicted directly with the show's sponsors, PBS gave him a choice between the money and the show, and Vila chose the money. The firing came through a press release, and his agent found out the same way everyone else did. Steve Thomas followed for 14 years, won an Emmy in 1998, and then disappeared quietly in 2003 with a vague statement about wanting to sail and ski. No farewell episode, no real explanation, just an absence where a presence used to be. Producers screened more than 400 candidates to replace him. After one shoot with Kevin, they stopped looking entirely. Richard Trethewey handed Kevin a shovel on his first day and pointed him at a sewer line that needed digging. No orientation, no welcome, just work. Richard wanted to know whether Kevin was there to perform the role or actually earn it, and Kevin dug the ditch. Tom Silva put real lumber in front of him and real saws and told him to cut, knowing cameras would catch every mistake. The hours spent off camera were just as demanding, covering proper tool handling, precise measurement, and how to work alongside experienced tradespeople without slowing the pace. 1 year into all of it, a 2004 Emmy nomination arrived for Outstanding Service Show Host. Critics who assumed a finance background disqualified someone from hosting a technical program had their answer delivered in a single season. Inside This Old House launched in 2003 as well, a third show running simultaneously, offering behind-the-scenes access to the franchise's most memorable projects. Kevin was still at Bank of America while managing all 3, and when he finally resigned from the bank, the decision was measured and deliberate, consistent with every major move he'd made. In 2010, he expanded to cable television with This New House on DIY Network, co-hosted with Amy Matthews, focused on smart home technology and contemporary building methods. 2 more Emmy nominations followed, and the move proved he could hold audiences well outside public broadcasting. A book arrived in 2011, Best Homes from This Old House, produced with his college friend Mike Casey and featuring more than 200 photographs documenting the show's most celebrated transformations. It sold well enough to land Kevin a seat on the editorial board of This Old House magazine, giving him influence across the brand's television and print output at the same time. The public controversy arrived when Kevin described most modern DIY television as worthless, said these shows couldn't hold his interest for a second, and warned audiences that the budgets and timelines they were watching bore no resemblance to actual renovation work. HGTV stars responded publicly. Some in the industry praised the honesty, while others called it arrogant gatekeeping. Kevin framed it as a philosophy war between education and entertainment, between programs that taught real craftsmanship and shows that depicted weekend kitchen flips requiring 6 months in reality. What he never addressed across more than 20 years of public interviews was Bob Vila, not once. No criticism, no tribute, no reference of any kind. Industry insiders read that silence as deliberate, long-game strategy, because Vila still carries real weight in renovation circles, and reopening that history serves no purpose Kevin can identify. Norm Abram retired in October 2022, after 43 years on the show, and Roger Cook had already stepped away in 2020, after nearly 4 decades due to health issues. Kevin managed both transitions carefully, introducing replacements gradually rather than abruptly, keeping the show's identity stable through disruption that could easily have broken it. He also adjusted the format as viewing habits shifted around him, compressing camera sequences from continuous 6-minute takes down to cuts lasting seconds, sharpening segments without sacrificing technical depth, and evolving his own questions from basic explanations toward the kind of reasoning that 2 decades of hands-on experience actually produces. In October 2019, the Clear Story podcast launched and reached the top 1% of all streamed podcasts, earning a 4.8 rating on Apple. A 2021 partnership with Roku made all 1,500 episodes from both shows available to stream for free, including a 24/7 channel. Kevin also co-founded This Old Toolbox, a tool rental platform built specifically for the DIY community the show had spent decades teaching. His net worth sits between $5 million and $7.68 million. Television accounts for roughly $10,000 per episode across more than 380 episodes hosted, a rate more than 12 times what Bob Vila earned at his peak. Speaking engagements bring in $15,000 to $50,000 per keynote, including a headline appearance at the 2024 Equip Exposition in Kentucky. His investment portfolio includes $5.1 million in stock at Bridge, the company where he also serves as CEO, generating around $1.5 million annually. And the house he chose for his own family is a Queen Anne Victorian from 1894 in Hamilton, Massachusetts, because, for Kevin O'Connor, it was never really about the money anyway.